Hello again. I am Chris Lee of Southeastern 16, joined by Blake Lovell and Max Barr. We are here to predict the outcomes of two SEC basketball games on Tuesday night. We will talk about them in this order: South Carolina going to Georgia, and then Oklahoma traveling to Texas A&M. Let's start with the Gamecocks
Just
going
one
to
second, real
Athens.
quickly, for anyone out there, if you're looking for Tennessee, Kentucky, we've done that in another video. We don't want you to think we've forgotten about that game. It's in another
Yes.
video if you're hopping into this one. So,
Yes. Anyway, Gamecocks have been playing well, cannot catch a break. Georgia has probably been playing its worst ball of the season, having trouble scoring buckets, but still a very tough defensive team. Max Barr, start us off with South Carolina and Georgia. What catches your eye here?
Two teams in desperation. I always like a game like this. Both teams on at least a 4-game skid. I believe you'll have. I'm expecting probably Georgia -5. I think probably Georgia -5, Georgia -4.5. Maybe out to 6, but that might be stretching it. Somewhere around there, 2 possessions. Um, this is a matchup of the front courts. This is going to be fun. I don't care how much you like offense, how much you like this or that. You're going to get Asa Newell, RJ Godfrey, Abeson, whoever, Cyril, whoever it is, clashing against probably the most dominant two-man front court with Pringle and Murray Boyles in terms of just imposing what they want to do on teams. This is going to be an absolute clash of the big guys.
yeah, don't be surprised if this one is lower scoring, I think. Because if you look at the way these two teams have been playing offensively, as much as I give Georgia for, just, I think, really struggling at times on that side of the floor, look, South Carolina's not been any better. South Carolina's turned it over more than anybody in SEC play so far. Their efficiency numbers are worse than any other team so far, and I mean they're over, right? You would expect that in the league, but yeah, this still to me sets up as an interesting matchup between these two teams because we have seen Georgia at home be a different team, and on the road they've not played well, but at home they've beaten Kentucky, they've beaten Oklahoma, they almost beat Auburn. And so, you kind of have to flip it and say, well, can I really look at Georgia overall in these road games and apply it the same to their home games? I don't know if I can because they've been pretty good there. And meanwhile, for South Carolina, I mean, their results have been better at home than they have away, but let's also not forget they almost went and won at Vanderbilt a couple weeks ago where the Commodores, have beaten back-to-back top 10 teams at home. So, it's just been that kind of year, and so like Max said, it's a fun matchup here, especially when you look at the front court play.
Yeah, I want to talk about who you trust to get a bucket more because both teams have struggled offensively. Obviously, Colin Murray Boyles is probably your most trusted scorer on the floor, although Asa Newell would have an argument. But one thing that's, I think, important to remember for South Carolina, Jamari Thomas missed 4 games in a row before coming back to play Mississippi State this past Saturday. Obviously, Carolina took State to overtime before losing, but Thomas had 19 points in that one, 10 to 12 free throws. I think if Carolina is going to pull the upset, and we don't have the line, but you look at Ken Palm right now, Georgia's going to be favored by what? It'll be about 7
Like 5 or
points.
6. Like
Yeah,
5 or 6.
some Thomas being back is definitely going to help Carolina in this spot.
Oh, yeah, he'll help for sure. But I think when you look at kind of the matchups, South Carolina offensively against Georgia defensively, I think Georgia's going to pose some problems for the South Carolina offense, especially just not fouling. In conference play, Georgia's fouling at the 3rd fewest rate. That's where South Carolina's getting all their points from. So if you're getting if this is a home whistle and South Carolina is not getting to the free throw line, I think they're going to be struggling for offense all night long.
Picks.
Well, if you flip that, what I just said, Georgia's offense, the South Carolina defense, it's the same exact thing. They both don't foul, and they both get all their points from free throws. So you take your pick at what you want to lean into. South Carolina has actually been the better rebounding team by a wide margin, and that's saying something because Georgia's the tallest team in the league by average height. So, is Georgia going to be able to challenge themselves and rebound at home and really be physical? Or is South Carolina going to keep imposing their will? Is someone's phone going off?
Mine.
So,
Maybe it's Father Lamont Paris calling, saying, who's going to be the person that picks the upset here? Is it going to be Max Barr?
Nope. Oh, my gosh. Had to do it to him. No, I think if this was at South Carolina, I'd be picking South Carolina all day. Easy. But I'm going to go Georgia at home here, just leaning in with the home team.
We've been a little down on Georgia here at the channel, but one thing that makes good teams, and I still think Georgia's a good team, look worse than they are is a brutal schedule. And guess who's played the worst in terms of the toughest schedule, according to Ken Pom in SEC play? That's Georgia. We talked about Georgia playing better at home. South Carolina also on the road. It's not been very good. Last road game, a 20-point loss to Oklahoma. There was the game before that where if Carolina had caught a break, could have beaten Vanderbilt in Nashville. And then before that, just clocked 35 points at Mississippi State, which it's nearly beat on its home floor. Here's my point. I did think about picking South Carolina in this one. The Gamecocks are going to get somebody at some point. Georgia feels ripe for the picking, but the more I look into it, I don't feel this is the spot. Give me Georgia at home where, let's not forget, it beat Kentucky by 13 points when the Cats were playing pretty well a couple of weeks ago.
Fair. Let's also not forget that those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. As a wise man, Winston Churchill, once said, South Carolina has beaten Georgia 7 of the last 8 meetings at Steckman Coliseum.
Wow.
The Gamecocks have owned the Bulldogs in that arena over the past, 8 years or so, I guess, because I think they play twice every year, do they not? Yeah, they do. So South Carolina's had a lot of success in that building. Now, you could say, well, this is probably the best Georgia team during that stretch. And yes, they tend to be playing better at home. But again, sometimes you got to take a chance. Sometimes you got to go out there knowing that the picks lead is not in your favor. And had Max Barr picked South Carolina, I would have also picked South Carolina. But because Max picked Georgia, I will be picking the Georgia Bulldogs to win this game at home. So
I saw it coming from a mile away.
Yeah. Well, remember, Chris has said Georgia is good, not great. And he also has said that South Carolina is just a terrible, terrible basketball team.
Wait a
just
minute.
keep that in mind when it comes to the slant. When it comes to go check out the power rankings this week, folks. You'll know what I'm
those
talking
things
about.
is true.
All right, Oklahoma A&M. Here we go.
Yeah, this one is in College Station. We're doing this Monday morning. No line available. Let's see what Ken Pom says. Let's see. Ken Pom says that, as I stall.
It's like Simon says. We got everything Ken Pom says. We got to repeat it. Is that how this
Pretty
works?
much. That's how it works around here. Ken Pom says Oklahoma will win this one. Excuse me, A&M will win this one by 8 points. This is a disaster.
No confusion
Max
there.
Barr, you talk for a bit.
What the heck just happened? A&M's going to be favored by probably like 3 possessions. Call it whatever number you want to. They're coming off of the 1-point loss on the road. A quick turnaround in the Tuesday game. I think they're going to be real focused. This is as clear as a breakdown as I've had in probably all season. I think this is an Oklahoma team that is just a absolute nightmare. Flip that, like A&M is the nightmare matchup for an Oklahoma team going on the road. This is a undersized Oklahoma team that doesn't rebound too well, doesn't protect the rim too well, and they foul a lot. Just absolute recipe for disaster.
Remember, these two teams played several weeks ago. 2 factors that I think are different now. Wade Taylor will be playing in this game. And remember, that was the Bryson Godine game where he hit 9 threes. and they went 14 of 24 from three. Are they going to replicate that on the road against Texas A&M? That's a tough thing to ask. You had one of these once in a season type performances, and yet A&M still won the game without their best player and going up against an absolute just Jack Golke type performance on the other side. And so, and Max and Oklahoma turned over 18 times in that game too. So now you hit the road and you have a tough matchup against an A&M team that, as we said, they've kind of been a little inconsistent here recently. There's no question about that. But, man, Oklahoma, on the road too, has not been the best here. At Alabama, they lost by 28. At Georgia, they lost by 10. I know they beat Arkansas on the road, but, again, Arkansas is just not a very good team right now. I'm with Max. I think it's a brutal setup. It's a brutal matchup, I think, for Oklahoma, just from a basketball stylistic standpoint.
I think if Oklahoma is going to pull the upset, it's Jeremiah Fears having a big game. He did have a 2-point game 4 games ago, has gotten back a little bit more to what we're used to. But I think if we look at this and Oklahoma's pulled the upset, that is probably the key. Now, the problem is A&M's got some veteran guards who can defend him.
Oh, you're talking about Zurich, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. You just literally stole my next 2 minutes right out in front of me. Yeah, Zurich Phelps on Jeremiah Fears
lately.
I know, we're just synced right up. That's going to be a major piece, especially with it being back at A&M. It's similar to, like, I'll draw a comparison to the Florida Kentucky game. That game at Kentucky plays an unbelievable game and wins that game. But when you look into it, you're like, wow, Florida played really well. And if they get that turned around at Florida, I am jumping all over Florida in that spot. Same exact thing here. And Blake kind of touched on it. Pretty much everything goes right for Oklahoma besides taking care of the basketball. You get them without their star player and they still don't win. And now you got to go on the road when they're coming off of a 1-point loss. They're pissed off coming off of a 1-point loss against a rival in the game they controlled. It's just as brutal as a spot as I've seen this year.
All right, let's make picks.
A&M.
Yeah. I think that I don't think that you got to get A&M's attention, but the way they lost to Texas in that fashion will get A&M plenty motivated for this one. Give me the Aggies too.
I was just excited to see how Max was going to approach this, but he made it very simple. So yeah, it's made it very easy. I'm picking A&M too. If we're all wrong about this, then it's going to be Godine's going to go off for 30 plus again. Maybe Fears does it, maybe Moore does it, and A&M just that inconsistency maybe creeps back in a little bit. But let's be honest, if we're just doing this from a basketball standpoint, there just is not a lot right now that would tell any of us to lean towards Oklahoma here on the road in this matchup. So what else are we supposed to do? We're supposed to just create something, that isn't there. I don't see it on paper. So games aren't played on paper, but I'm picking the Aggies.
Well, they have won their last 2, and one of them against an Arkansas team that was desperate to get a win. So there was that, and the game before that,
16 and 15 in our power rankings in the last 2 games.
Okay, fair. But I mean, none of to be fair, none of these games are easy. South Carolina's not an easy win right now. So I'm just saying, if you're looking for an angle, Oklahoma did lose 4 in a row and has come back pretty strong, including one of those being a 20-point win.
Yeah, true.
Still not enough, but just to
I think
be fair.
A&M's considerably better than Arkansas in South Carolina, and it's on the road. So.
Nobody would argue that. All right, well, we'll be talking about it Tuesday night. Hope you'll come join us. To do that, hit the subscribe button. That is free. Enable your notifications. That is also free. Super chats are not free. Leave us one of those in the live stream when you join us on Tuesday night. But you can chat for free. Anyway, I'm rambling. Enough of me. On with your days. For Blake Lovell and Max Barr, I'm Chris Lee. You've been watching basketball content here at Southeastern 16.